The conference room carried the stale scent of burnt coffee and cheap disinfectant. HR sat stiffly at one end of the table, a stack of neatly arranged documents in front of them. On the opposite side was my wife, her lips curved into a smug, self-satisfied grin. "Liam," she began, her tone dripping with mock sympathy, "after 15 years with the company, we decided to restructure your position. My boyfriend will be taking over." I glanced at the man beside her, my supposed replacement, who wore a triumphant smirk as if victory was already his. "Please clear out your desk by Friday," she added, almost giddy with anticipation. The HR rep shifted uneasily, clearly uncomfortable with the tension crackling through the room. I didn't lash out, didn't argue. Instead, I offered a calm, almost amused smile. "Completely understood," I said evenly, because the truth was simple. They thought they had me cornered. What they didn't realize was that they just walked straight into my trap. I leaned back slightly, hiding the grin tugging at my lips. Monday, I thought, was going to be very entertaining. Chapter 2, The Forgotten Clause. By Friday afternoon, I carried a cardboard box filled with my things out of the building. To the casual observer, I looked defeated, head lowered, shoulders heavy, the picture of a man quietly swallowing humiliation. But inside, I was smiling. Unlike my wife and her new partner, I understood the fine print buried in the company's foundations. 15 years ago, when the business was still a fragile startup, I hadn't just been another hire. I was part of the original team. And with that came something neither of them had bothered to check. Founder shares. The contract was airtight. My shares couldn't be revoked without a buyout, and any restructuring of executive positions required the unanimous approval of every founding member. In other words, by firing me, they hadn't just made a bad decision. They'd violated corporate law. That entire weekend, I sat across from my lawyer, sipping coffee while we pored over contracts and legal filings. "Liam," he said, shaking his head in disbelief, "they've walked straight into this. On Monday, you don't return as an employee. You return as their superior. I didn't warn my wife. I didn't call to ruin her weekend. I wanted her to keep celebrating with her new lover, to keep believing they had won. HR probably thought they'd closed everything neatly, too. But by Monday morning, the paperwork was already in motion. Injunctions against a restructuring, notices of a board meeting, and motions for breach of fiduciary duty. When I walked back into the building, I wasn't carrying a box of belongings. I was carrying a folder, the kind of folder that could shatter lives. And that's when the real fun began. Chapter 3, The Boardroom Showdown. The boardroom carried the faint aroma of expensive coffee and cologne, a room where millions were routinely decided with show of hands. My wife and her boyfriend sat close together, smug and relaxed, assuming this meeting was a formality to finalize my exit. HR stood awkwardly near the wall, clutching folders like a shield. I entered quietly, not angry, not bitter, but with the calm assurance of a man who knew he was holding every card. My wife leaned back, her voice dripping with arrogance. "Oh, Liam, here to give you goodbyes? Don't worry. We'll make sure your transition is smooth." Her boyfriend chuckled. "Relax, man. Corporate life just isn't for everyone." Several board members shifted uneasily, picking up on the tension that hung in the air. Without a word, I set a thick folder on the polished table and slid copies across to each executive. "Actually," I said evenly, "I'm here to discuss breach of fiduciary duty and unlawful restructuring." Her smile froze. His smirk faltered. I turned my attention to the board. As outlined in Section 12 of the company bylaws, no restructuring of an executive position can proceed without the approval of all founding shareholders. As of last Friday, an attempt was made to remove me without such approval. This act directly violates company law. The CFO flipped through the documents, his eyes widening with each page. HR looked ready to disappear into the wallpaper. I leaned forward, voice steady and deliberate. As a result, I have filed for an injunction. Effective immediately, the restructuring is null and void. All related decisions are suspended. Furthermore, I am calling for a vote to remove those who acted in bad faith, specifically the individuals who conspired to replace me. A wave of gasps rippled through the room. My wife's face drained to color, and her boyfriend's smirk collapsed into open panic. The tables had turned, and their public humiliation had only just begun. The chairman of the board cleared his throat, his voice firm. Mr. Collins is absolutely right. This action was illegal. Effective immediately, the so-called restructuring is null and void. Liam retains his full authority. He turned his gaze on my wife and her lover, his tone sharp as steel. As for you two, you've disgraced this company. Expect to hear from our legal team. The atmosphere shifted instantly. A low murmur spread across the room. Several executives rose to shake my hand, while others directed icy, contemptuous stares at my wife. Cameras from a corporate communication department, intended to document a leadership change, had captured every humiliating second. And just like that, the hunters had become the prey, exposed before every shareholder. Chapter 4. Stripping them bare. Even after the decision was announced, the silence in the boardroom clung like a fog. My wife and her boyfriend remained frozen in their seats, their knuckles white against the polish of the table, while board members filed out. Some whispered in disbelief. Others shot them looks of pure disgust. But this was only the opening act. Financial retribution. The next move was swift and precise. Exercising my rights as a founding shareholder, I ordered a forensic audit of corporate spending over the past year. It didn't take the accountants long to uncover the truth. My wife and her boyfriend had been siphoning funds for luxury getaways, five-star resorts, and extravagant dinners. This wasn't carelessness. It was embezzlement. Their company credit cards were frozen. Access to financial accounts revoked. Both were placed under internal investigation. Overnight, the endless flow of money they had relied on vanished. Public exposure. But it wasn't just their finances at risk. The communications team had filmed the transition meeting, planning to use it as part of a glowing PR campaign. Instead, the footage, my wife smugly announcing her lover as my replacement, followed by the board's public reversal and reprimand, was leaked. By Tuesday morning, the clip had spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed, CEO's wife and lover attempt coup, fail spectacularly. Her phone, once buzzing with invitations and admiration, fell silent. Friends disappeared. Their reputations were reduced to ash. The emotional blow. That night, she cornered me at home, her voice trembling with desperation. Liam, you don't understand. It was just business. We can fix this, she pleaded. I studied her face, the same woman who had tried to erase me in front of the entire company. My reply was quiet, almost gentle. No, you fired me. Remember? You told me to clear out by Friday. Now it's your turn. Pack your things. Get out of my house. She froze. Tears welled in her eyes. But I didn't waver. For the first time, she understood the reality. Her power was gone. Her lover couldn't shield her. And I was no longer the man she thought she could control. Epilogue. Her fall. 6 months later, the woman once worshipped at galas and corporate functions was unrecognizable. Her name had become poison in business circles, whispered with disdain. She was branded as a schemer who tried to hijack a company with her lover. That lover didn't last either. When the lawsuits and audits closed in, he betrayed her, cutting a deal to save himself. Now she lived in a rented apartment, drowning in legal bills, cut off from corporate accounts, ignored by the family and friends who once adored her. The same people who once fought to be in her orbit now avoided her as if she carried a disease. My rise. As for me, I flourished. With the parasites gone, I steered the company into its strongest financial year on record. Shareholders celebrated my leadership. Employees respected me more than ever. Trade magazines ran headlines like, "The CEO who survived a coup and emerged stronger." At home, life was steadier, more genuine. My children stood firmly by me, proud of the man who endured betrayal, survived humiliation, and turned it all into victory. The final closure. The last time I saw her, she was standing outside a courthouse, begging a reporter not to take her picture. Our eyes met across the chaos of the crowd, and in that fleeting second I saw it, the realization in her eyes. She hadn't fired me. She had fired herself, and she was the one erased. I turned, stepped into my car, and drove away without looking back. Because real revenge isn't screaming, "I won." It's building a life so successful that the ones who try to destroy you can't even fathom it.